Good morning and welcome to Wake Up with the Consciousness Cafe. My name is Lisa Ferraro. I'm the founder and spiritual director of SoulCall Ministries. And wherever you are this morning, we welcome you. And I welcome one of my dearest friends and mentors and co-ministry partner, Dr. David Leonard. Welcome to the show this morning.
Oh, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah. We're here this morning talking about where we begin. And David and I were just having a great discussion about where we begin and how we can allow ourselves to practice some of the qualities of our soul nature. And one of them, to become more of an active listener, where we begin, learning from each other so that we can build a better tomorrow. This is what we're talking about, starting with the way we treat each other right now, today, as human beings, souls. And I don't know if you want to start right off the bat with this awesome T-shirt you decided to wear today. It's
Oh,
perfect.
oh yeah. Well, because these are kind of confusing times. I was telling Lisa when I was traveling across Canada, I stopped in a little art gallery in New Brunswick, and there was this lovely lady who did pottery. And in the corner of the gallery, she had T-shirts, these black T-shirts. And I thought, what's with the T-shirt? And she said, well, I went through a really tough time in my life. I left corporate America and I decided I was going to be an artist. And everybody was saying, this is not good and it's not good for you. But she said, my soul was aching to do that. So she said, I had to embrace the confusion that I was in at that time. So she made a T-shirt. But at the same time, she said, I have to stay centered. And so, and she says, notice that centered is CENTRED because we're Canadians. And I said, I'll take note. So I've had this T-shirt for maybe 25 years. And every time I put it on, I think, these are confusing times, but I'm going to stay centered in the midst of it. And I think that's how we're all navigating as much as possible. Every Sunday, I reference Paul in his letter to the Philippians. And for me to quote Paul is like a miracle in itself. But Paul says, when things are really chaotic, he said, don't worry. That's his first thing. The second thing he said, in all you're asking, do it with a grateful heart. I'm just so grateful to be in a democracy and to be with my beloved Lisa and be talking about the soul. But he says, the third and the most important, he said, let that peace that is always there, he called it a peace that passes all understanding. He said, let it guard your heart and let it guard your mind. And so, with that same idea of staying centered, I try to find the center of the storm always and navigate from that place. And then I can offer that to the world. When the congregation comes and they're having these anxious feelings, and they are, and the world is, I can feel the anxiety of the world. What
Yeah.
if I could offer them that peaceful place? Lisa's always been my port in the storm. She and Etika, when we would do our circle of love gatherings, and sometimes they try to charge us for the whole event and they'd slap us with the bill at the end. But Lisa, in her calmness and her ability, I think her Italian blood came through, but she always got us through those tough, turbulent times, and in a positive, loving way. It was a win-win, a win for them and a win for us. So I think it's always that, isn't it? We have to begin right there at the core of our being and find that centered place and then operate from there, operate from peace.
I've been teaching this class on the vortex. I have quite a few friends who enjoy Abraham Hicks
Yeah.
teachings, and the way they say it is, moving toward the positive feeling. And
Oh,
what I love is Paul. It's not. It's like I call it new to you thought. Like these
yeah.
traditions are ancient, and in our
They're
times,
ancient.
different people come in to remind us, reheart us, with to keep that peaceful feeling keeps us open and alive and vibrating with potential and possibility. But as soon as we get charged, as you were saying, and feeling fearful, that means we've taken hold of one idea and we start to feed it as if it's the only one.
That's right.
And if this is this, then I can't have this or that. And so maintaining peace in times of confusion helps us to see more of what we would like to see, first of all, which is more people coming together. So what SoulCall and what you offer in your ministry for 31 years, this is why we've been partners for 20, is
Yeah.
that solace found in the soul, which doesn't mean non-action. It means
Right.
action that is guided by intuition,
That's
that
right.
interiorized knowing, that creates more peace as it goes along, and
And
not.
you know what I love about the idea of working with the soul is the soul wants meaning, whereas the ego wants answers. And if you're going to constantly be looking for answers to problems, in a way, you're validating the problem. But if you can find meaning in this coronavirus, if you can find meaning in this election that we've had, if you can find meaning in your ministry, then life takes on a whole new dimension. And you mentioned listening, and it's not only important to listen to one another, which is so crucial now, but the thing that I feel is most important is to listen to that still small voice from within yourself,
Right.
that guidance system of your soul. And it's always guiding us, always. Oftentimes we don't listen to the soul because we want to get practical and we let the world tell us what we should be. When the soul is saying, my God, you're a dancer. If you're going to be a dancer, dance. My God, you're a singer. Get out of corporate America, Lisa, and sing. My God, you're an artist, Etika. Get out there and play that guitar. You don't have to be a physicist or a doctor. You can be a creative expression. So the soul wants to find meaning. And could we listen to that?
Yeah.
Even during these challenging times.
And we're talking also about offering peaceful opportunities, peaceful resolutions.
Right.
That this week it's one thing, but it's an ongoing. As contrast comes in, it just helps us to clarify what we would prefer to have and what we prefer to see less of. But it's
Right.
still there. It doesn't mean it goes away. It's our relationship with these things that present. So we were talking about Nelson Mandela, and I
Right.
would love for you to share your wisdom
Yeah.
from that
Well,
experience.
I think that the past can inform the present and the future can inform the present. I mean, we know what's going to happen on our planet scientifically around climate change. I have a husband of 45 years who has been keeping copious records on the weather, and he charts how the temperature has gone up. He keeps articles. So could we let the future inform how we are on the planet? And the same thing when I was in South Africa in 1999 at the Parliament of the World Religions, I happened to take a little day trip over to Robben Island. And that is the place where they incarcerated Nelson Mandela for 27 years, simply for being Black, with a bunch of other uh, Black South Africans. And when he went into that prison, and it's now a museum, he was in a tiny little cell and he had a different way of seeing it. He told those in the prison, we're going to call this the university. We're not going to call it a prison. And he raised consciousness within that prison of those that were there. And when they would take you on a tour around Robben Island, the prison, the ones that were taking you on the tour were the ex-prisoners. And they talked about what a sacred space that he created. And once he was liberated from prison, he became the president of South Africa. And instead of getting revenge and blaming them, he had the Council for Reconciliation, where they could express their grievances. He healed the country. And I love that line from Ecclesiastes, there's a time to sow, a time to reap, and then there's a time to heal. And I think that's why it's so powerful what we do in our ministries right now. We're helping people heal.
Yeah.
Lisa has a beautiful metaphor of the bridge, and I loved it. She did it in one of our classes with a young man whose mother and father were they were getting a divorce, and neither one was communicating. The son was trying to help the two parents, and Lisa said, "Could we find a bridge where they can meet? Maybe it's the bridge of courage. They both have to have the courage to leave the marriage and to find their own way, and they meet on that bridge of courage." And it did so much for little Roop in helping his mom and dad because he had a place to go. The bridge of hope. That's what you gave him, Lisa. Or was the bridge of courage?
I'm born in the city of bridges, so I guess it's an analogy that I appreciate, I suppose. But yeah, in order to get from, and it's not necessarily from, I think when people think about a bridge, they think of crossing it all the way. And sometimes it is the point is, let's just
Where we
meet
meet. Yeah.
and you bring a little bit of this from there and I bring this from here. And then maybe I come all the way across. But at least we have a perspective we could watch the same river of life flowing beneath us and experience the motion of life simultaneously. And with that, just by the act of coming together and watching, seeing the same thing, whether we agree on what it looks like or not, we are signaling to the universe that we're willing to look together at the same thing.
And that's what Nelson Mandela did. That's what Nelson Mandela did. He met with all of the white Afrikaans government and they built bridges of understanding. That's what Lincoln did in his cabinet during the Civil War. He put on his cabinet those of different belief systems so that they could all have the dialogue, so they could listen to one another. Instead of holding them at bay, calling them bad or wrong, he included them in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that's what needs to happen in the world today. I know it needs to happen in my family. So we can start right there at the base roots of family and we can work our way out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's tricky too. With I'm looking at the way the pandemic is kind of over. It's like the smear over top of this. I don't know why I'm thinking of cake and icing, but it's not an icing or a cake. It's not very sweet right now, but it's just malaise, I guess, of it's going to make it more difficult for us to get into each other's physical proximity over the holidays during
Right.
a time that it could be so intense. Maybe there's a reason for that. And I'm feeling like the reason could be for some of us, we could take that opportunity to be more, as you were saying earlier, introspective and get in touch with our own soul nature first so that we're more inclined to lead from that place of congruence
Yes.
and compassion.
Well, I'm considerably older, Lisa, and when I was a little boy in the 50s,
Yeah.
they had an epidemic called polio, and it was striking kids. And I remember if you go to school, the fear was that you could catch it in first grade, kindergarten, and then you'd be in an iron lung, and it would paralyze you. You couldn't walk. And I remember facing the fear. And when that Salk vaccine came along in 1952, it's as if it was like a miracle. It's like it brought the whole country together. So
Yeah.
maybe could we see the coronavirus as bringing us together in a strange sort of way? When I saw the demonstrations on Saturday and people were cheering, I was concerned for all the people being in close contact, but they were all
Yeah.
wearing masks. And
Yeah.
I thought they're being respectful of that simple thing of, and now we have what they call a corona virus advisory board bringing. This gives me hope that we're going to take this slimy frosting of the cake that you mentioned.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's a
not a
beautiful
good analogy,
metaphor.
yeah, but
No, and put some sweetness into it. Maybe
maybe.
we'll make it work.
Yeah,
We
add whatever we
can't
need to
deny
just
it. We can't deny it. We can't
make it a
pretend
little
that
more
it's not there.
palatable. No, we can't, and it is that you and I were talking about the beauty of the United States of America is we give people the opportunity to be independent and
Yeah.
practice their own ideas. And again, coming from Pennsylvania, the history of Western Pennsylvania is named after William Penn, whose father was an admiral and favored by the king. But William Penn was always in trouble for allowing people to practice freedom of religion.
Yes.
So his rather than getting thrown in jail again, his admiral father got the king to give him this parcel of land here in the New World. Here we are in Pennsylvania. That's why we've got a lot of the Pennsylvania Dutch, the Quakers.
Yeah.
Um, when we know that kind of stuff, and also in Pittsburgh, the confluence of the Monongahela and the Allegheny form the Ohio. And then there's this underground river that's this mystical place of magic, but it's there. The French and Indian War helped us to establish what we call now the United States of America. So there's all this history there that I was always fond of that came into the material world through great challenge. But the ideals of it were that in our individualized slice of spark of the infinite, we still belong to the cosmos together,
Right.
the cosmic consciousness and the universal love. And in our independence works when there's interdependence.
That's right.
And I realized that, like looking again where I grew up, all these pockets of there are little neighborhoods. People became proficient with the customs of being free because they started off in these. There was the Italian neighborhood and the Jewish neighborhood and the Irish neighborhood and the African American neighborhoods. Like this interdependence allowed us to find our voice as independent humans. We had the support of others. And now we're just kind of stretching the scope of that support. We need to be able to see, to learn how to see differently because it looks different.
I was telling Lisa, there's this wonderful book out now. It's called First Principles, and it's about the founding of our republic from the founding fathers of the country and what they really dreamed about. And you mentioned this independence of the individual, which is what America was based on, self-reliance, freedom of speech, freedom of individuality. But in the Constitution, they really stressed the common good. And that's where we come together as the Italian communities and the Irish communities and the Jewish communities. I know you sang a lot in Pittsburgh, and you used to sing at the temple, didn't you? Here's this nice little Catholic girl singing at the temple.
I
You
would
were
sing the receptions at the temple. I cantored in the Catholic churches. I was not a Jewish cantor, but I did sing at their receptions, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs,
yeah.
weddings, all of
So
that.
that's interdependence. That's coming together. That's sitting around the table and breaking bread. And
It's
listening to them.
using our individuality to, again, promote the whole. Like you can show up as the independent person you are, bring your beautiful thing forth, bring your gift forward. And I look at it as a musician, like a symphony. You wouldn't put a piece of tuba music in front of a piccolo player. It's a useless proposition. We can't make the piccolo sound like a tuba, or vice versa. So allow us to recognize that in the overtones of the harmony we bring to the symphony, that's what washes over the audience of the world and the consciousness and creates something new, creates something vibrant, relevant, and nourishing.
That's right.
So,
And I think the world will tell us what it needs. In this beautiful um, indictment at the very beginning of your lovely presentation, you talked about listening and listen to the cries of the world. What is the world asking for? It wants to be heard. Carl Rogers, the great therapist, said all anybody ever really wants is to be heard. So could we hear our neighbors when they're going through their challenges? Could we hear the frustration and embrace it, like this little T-shirt says, and staying centered in our own abiding, peaceful, creative, loving essence self, whatever that is. And that's the first place that I think we always must begin with the context. Lisa and I love to talk about content and context. The context is that we are this peaceful presence. And then the content is that we get to shape that energy by the thoughts that we think, by the intentions that we have,
mhm.
by the goals that we set. And we get to ask, are those the intentions of the soul? Or is my ego getting in here and trying to manipulate an outcome? We get to be kind of self-reflective, I think, at this time. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and I think we're evolving into a greater order of being on the planet. That's why your and my ministry is so relevant now, because we have to evolve or perish.
Yeah.
And these are the times, and we've been created for these times.
Yeah.
So could we embrace these times as times of transformation and to be a part of the solution?
Yeah. Being part of the solution. So, on behalf of David and myself and Reverend Christie and the whole SoulCall Ministries team, we invite you to participate with what is from the vantage point of your soul. Get into that sacred center, as David's t-shirt said. And we have ways that we're offering to do that. Classes, we're going to have a class on mysticism coming up at the first of the year, but also meditations. Reach out to us if you're in need of prayer or struggling. Just know that we are here for you. It's part of our joy, our individualized representation is to be of service to the infinite in you. And thank you, Reverend David. It's always a joy to be with you. We need more time. We'll have to have a longer session.
You're radiant, my love. You're just, and thank you for doing what you do.
It's my joy.
It's a
Yeah.
great
And
time.
wherever you are on the planet, please remember always you are loved. Peace and blessings.